She has a VA company. So I actually did it through her. So you pay $2,000 to basically get the VA trained for you so that they already kind of know the systems and stuff like that. So EXP has a similar system to our platform where all of the documents are online and stuff like that. So they kind of act as like a transaction coordinator as well, where they know like the paperwork and the online systems for the brokerage. I started at EXP and then I switched over to Real. So she's been helping me with both since I was with either company. But basically, after the $2,000 training and onboarding fee to get that assistant, I pay $4 an hour.
Oh, wow. So is your VA overseas?
She's in Brazil. So $4 an hour is basically the equivalent of minimum wage over there. She started part-time doing 20 hours a week and then wanted to go full-time. So my friend and I are both agents in 2 states. So we kind of split her. So I give her 20 hours a week. She gives her 20 hours a week so we could keep her as full-time because we didn't have enough for her to do for either of us to have her as a full-time assistant.
Gotcha. And then, so you're paying $4 an hour. That's amazing. Gigi, are you paying about the same?
I'm paying, he's full-time, he's in Venezuela. He told me $350 a month, which I thought was like abuse. So I upped it to 400 and I pay him commission on all of our closed deals. So it's about 3 to 4 deals a month and I pay him 250 each deal. So he's making like a little over 1,250 a month. So it's a big upgrade for him. So that's really how I do it.
Awesome. I imagine he's like super loyal to you because of the extra.
Definitely.
Yeah. How about you, Ray?
So I have a couple of them. One of them is paid on a per task basis. So the transaction coordinator is per transaction. I pay $150 when it closes. I have a VA that's a personal assistant, and I hate email, and it was always the bane of my existence is getting in and checking my email and just getting bogged down into it. So I don't anymore, and she does. So she's in my email, and she also organizes and sorts my calendar and any meetings and all that kind of stuff. Like she's the one that added this appointment to my calendar when she saw it come through, and she checked with me to make sure it was legit. So she gets 250 or so a week. And for me, that's well worth it. I don't ask her to do hourly reporting. When she first started, I was like, give me an hourly report. And then I was realizing that I never read it. I just want to make sure that she's doing work for me. And if I ever feel like she's fallen off, I would address it. But with her, I've never felt that way. She's 100% on top of it.
Amazing.
And then I got a guy that cuts shorts. And he's only good with certain types of shorts, but it's about $25 a short.
So it's like video editing?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And they all came from like Upwork, Fiverr?
No, so my first one, the one that I interviewed everyone for, I mean, I took a lot of time to select the first one. And so my first one came through Upwork. All of the others are hired by her.
Ah, okay.
So I don't get the white guy price when she's doing the hiring. And the way I figured this out is she told me that. Like I was like, hey, I need a freelance guy. I'm thinking about hiring this person. And I asked her to get some information, and she was like, you shouldn't be paying that price. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, that's not the price you should be paying. She said, let me help. I was like, all right. And so she dove into the negotiations, and it was amazing. So my $100 shorts guy became $25. My $300 transaction coordinator became $150.
Wow.
So, and to this day, we hire freelance stuff all the time, like little, I need this design or I need this layout or something like that. And she's in charge of it. So I tell her the job I need, and then she goes and hires it out, gets some sample work, sends it back to me. I pick the sample work, and then she monitors the project and finishes it.
Amazing. I love that. She's like doing your hiring extra for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, James?
I pay $3.50 an hour. for mine. And Grace was talking about Go-Go's people. I actually know several people who have hired VAs through hers, and they've had really good experiences with it too. But there is, without going through an agency, there is some, you gotta seem like you gotta do a lot more training with them to get them there. So there is some time savings with paying for an agency there, I think, too.
Yeah, especially if they're helping you with training. Like that's something that I know I was talking with Rebecca the other day, and we were both talking about how we both want to hire a VA, but once we get through the point of making the job posting, you kind of just freeze up. Don't know where to go from there. I don't have the time to commit to training to somebody. So that's the whole point of hiring a VA, to find extra time.
Yeah, I'm on my third one in the past year, and I guess I require quite a bit out of them. And if they miss a meeting, then like, all right, you're on notice. They miss 2 meetings, then they're fired. So because like, I'm taking the time to train you up, and you're here to help save me time. So if I'm clear my schedule of that hour to be with you, then I expect you to be there. So
is everybody doing sort of like a weekly meeting? Like you have a set time with your VA where you're getting together with them and setting out your expectations for the week?
I start with that for like the first couple months, and then we move. Then once I get up and going, then I take it down every 2 weeks, and then once a month is what I do.
Gotcha. Hi, Tracy. Thanks for hopping on.
Sure.
I feel like I'm constantly talking to the VA. So I don't have a set meeting. Like this morning, we've been talking all morning, but it's not like a set meeting. Maybe I should have a set meeting. I don't know. I kind of send her a text to lay out everything that I want. Here's what I want to happen. Here are the specifics for this week. Here's the big things. And then from then on we go. Every now and then, probably about once or twice a month, I meet with the transaction coordinator VA and just get an update on everything that, any hangups that he's having that we need to address, anything that's stuck in processing, or, I need to push someone forward on a deal or something like that. But for the most part, I feel like I'm in communication with them all pretty regularly.
So is everybody doing, like, are you just unloading everything onto your VAs? Like outside of transaction coordination, what kind of stuff are you guys asking them to do for you?
I noticed that the biggest obstacle I have is just like if you're doing things that need to be done in person, like for example, EDDM, where you're doing like individual postcards to an area, something like that, like they have to be printed and bunched up and delivered to that local post office. So something like that can't get done. So it's annoying I have to do it myself or like outsource that to somebody in person, but everything else that's online, I basically outsource. So all of my Canva templates when it comes to like flyers and postcards and Facebook group posts and client gifts and getting those ordered, social media posts, like all of that transaction stuff, emails, that's all done through my TC. And I basically just meet with her once a week on a Monday and I'm like, okay, this is the game plan for this week. Like a lot of it is repeated week over week, but then there's some individual things that have to get updated based on transactions. So usually I'll just send like an email to her every Monday morning with an update on anything additional.
So for me, what I found that works was I do it by tasks. I started with one task and then I added on to that. So what I did was week 1, I did it and he saw me. Week 2, we did it together. Week 3, he did it on his own. And then I would hover over that for like another 10 days. And if he's nailed it, I'll introduce another task. And so on that week 1, when I'm doing it and he's watching me, he's creating a Google Doc with notes that makes sense for him instead of me writing the Google Docs. And then he's like, well, what does this mean? So he writes that Google Doc with his notes. And then he's responsible for upgrading that Google Docs as time goes. Like there's things in social media. That's what we started. His first task was all of my social media. And he's in charge of updating that specific Google Doc for that specific task as time goes, because we have changes and things like that. In that way, if I ever bring on another VA, he's the one in charge of training them and I don't have to do it twice. And so it's ongoing. And, because the thing with SOPs is like, okay, well, who updates them? I'm not going to do that anymore. It's going to be my VA and then my VA's VA and so on and so forth, so that it constantly stays updated and new.
I love that. So I have a question, and everybody else, feel free to chime in if you have questions. How are you guys sharing passwords and giving them the ability to log into your stuff and still have your online identity safe?
For my VA, I gave him his own email. He has own email with Google Workspace, and everything I have, I add him to. So like Follow Up Boss, he has his own account in Follow Up Boss. And I'm doing that, just, you never know, if you ever have to remove someone, you just turn off their email and everything turns off. So that's how I'm doing it. So he kind of has his own login for everything.
Yeah, that's smart.
I mean, I'm probably a little less secure, but I'm also less worried about it because, I went through such a egregious interview process. I trust the lady that's helping me and that's in all my email enough to where she sometimes responds to people as me. And what made me like really give over the keys is that she had very limited instruction when she first started. And she was in my email trying to help me out and responding to people and stuff. And I found some notes that she was taking, and she was actually going and looking at my old responses and then using that so that she can respond to people and it sounds like me. And I thought, wow, like she's going way over and above. But so I built a lot of trust with her, and now I just have a Google Doc that's got all the passwords and everything. The transaction coordinator has all the passwords, but they're not like my banking information. It's not my credit card accounts. It's the transactions. So like what's the worst that could happen? She goes in and writes some contracts on my behalf. That's not going to happen. So I just don't know what the concern is over the password situation. She doesn't have any personal passwords. She doesn't have any personal financial information, but she's got everything as it relates to work. And that can all be changed pretty quickly. So she's got as far as work stuff, she's got everything.
I know I have my transaction coordinator that's like physically in town with me, and she's got access to my DocuSign, and I'm always like, one day I might check my credit report and there's gonna be like 5 new credit cards I didn't know about because it's so easy for her to use my signature on everything. But so far so good.
I'd probably actually be more worried about it if the person was local.
That's true. Easier to do when you're in the same country. So does anybody have like a task list that they've been giving to their VA to try and offload onto them? Does anybody have anything like in a PDF that they'd be willing to share with us?
I don't know if I can, but I can share you my task list for my, I would need to share my screen because it's on my project management platform, which is Todoist. I don't know if you want to give me access to share my screen.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
And then this is another way to stay accountable because I don't want to be reaching out and saying, hey, was this done? And if it's checked off, then I know it was done. Let me
What's
see.
it called? Todoist?
Todoist, yeah.
Cool.
So let me share. So you guys see?
There we go.
Am I sharing?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
So this is his task list. I have this into sections. Because it's pretty intense. Let me close everything. So you remember I spoke about tasks earlier. So like, for example, social media was the very first task. And if we expand this, he'll write my blogs and schedule in Squarespace. And then within that, you can do subtasks. So he'll schedule the blog on LinkedIn. And then the actual blog post, he'll submit it in my Google Search Console. He'll share it on Twitter, Pinterest, Google My Business, my actual website, Facebook business page. He'll also share it to my Facebook personal page, and then he'll actually write it out in LinkedIn. Same thing with a listing post. He'll grab a listing post from my IDX feed and he'll share it. And so and then, I have timers for this. So some things are done daily, some things are done weekly, some things are done monthly, and he'll just check these off as things go. So, and then every task that I've introduced him to, he'll just check it off. Like he's writing my email, he's writing my newsletters in FUB. So this is monthly, right? So his next due date is August 1st. And then he'll do some of my email scrubbing. He will do some of my expireds and for sale by owner work, where he's skip tracing them. He will validate their emails and quick email verification. He'll verify their mobile numbers. He'll add them to my follow-up boss, So I use Todoist that way. And then we're constantly adding to this. And the good thing about this is that you can add a link. And so this link goes to the Loom video with directions. So let's say he forgets, or I get a new VA, the Loom video is here so that new VA knows what to do.
So did you just film yourself while you were walking him through it at the very beginning, and then just...
So week 1 was him writing the Google Doc.
Yeah.
And then week 2 is us doing it together. And week 3, before I handed it off to him, I created the Loom video. So he has a Loom video and he has a Google Doc to go off of.
I love that. That's so organized.
Yeah. Let me stop sharing here.
Is anyone else doing something similar?
I'm just using Google Sheets for it. I mean, my specific list would be of no help to you guys because it's so specific to what I'm using, what I need. But we have some for the transaction coordinator, some for, just task like sharing stuff on social media. It's just a little checklist, little reminder list that she can pull up. It's free 99, which I love.
And I'm just saving the notes out of the chat here.
I don't know if you know this, but on Google Sheets, if you use a Google Doc, there's a bullet point type that allows you to use it like a checklist. And so the transaction coordinator, for instance, copies that main sheet and then changes the title to the property address. And then we have a full checklist and he just checks it down and it marks it off as you go down.
Great idea. I didn't even know you could do that.
It's a
Ray,
little
is that something
checkbox
you could
bullet.
share?
Yeah, I can share my screen on that one.
Kristen, I'm the same with you. Like, I'm definitely to a point where I know I need a VA or someone. I do have a transaction coordinator that I've worked with for a few years, and she's great. But I have newer agents coming on that don't want to use a transaction coordinator. So now I have to be the one to be like, oh, here's, please use her. Anyways, or that checklist would be really helpful. But I'm kind of like you. I'm like, am I a control freak, or I just don't want to take the time to to train someone, because then I'm like, well, by that time I've already done it myself, so I might as well just do it myself. But I like the idea of doing it with them, and then, just kind of the stair step that Gigi was talking about. I like that approach for sure.
I do too, because I feel like they're actually getting it before you wean yourself off of micromanaging them.
And I will say too, with an agency like GoGo's, I was hesitant with the upfront fee at first, but it saved me so much time in training. Like, I didn't have to walk them through much of anything. It was like 1 day crash course, and then they just got started. So it depends on your schedule and like how much time you have to carve out for things like that. If you don't have the time for it, I would recommend going that route. It's a bigger investment, but obviously your time is also an investment. So like for me, it just made sense at that place I was in. I was like, I need to hire someone right away and I don't have time to walk them through this. But it really is subjective.
I love that. Thanks for sharing your screen, Ray. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, you're still here. You just disappeared out of my list for a second. You're back.
Yeah, I'm here.
Did anybody have any questions so far? I'm just like dragging through the meeting and not letting anybody else talk. I'm sorry.
Well, I feel like it's been very communicative.
Okay, good. Jeremy mentioned LastPass in the comments. I think that's like a password sharing tool, I'm assuming. Is anybody using that? No, it's all
I'd
you
have to
can
change my passwords. I use the same fucking password for everything. Yeah, just not my whole life.
Yeah, I know. I use the same password for everything, including my online banking. So I think I'm gonna have to get myself a little more organized.
So Ray, are you using a VA for your transaction coordinator?
Yeah.
Do they write offers and everything for you as well?
No, we write the offer, and then once the offer's been accepted, then it goes to the TC.
Okay.
We feel like there's some risk mitigation there.
I think in some states too, legally, they're not supposed to be writing up contracts for you. So I think it depends on where you're at. Like in Florida, I know we're not supposed to do that. In New York, we have attorneys, so we don't really have to worry about it.
Well, usually if the agent is putting their eyes on it last, it's usually okay. But the problem is when people just use their VA and you say, yeah, write it and send it, that becomes the issue. But if the agent's approving it, normally in most states, that's going to be okay. It's just when the agent's not touching it, it's a problem.
Yeah, when I started on a team, the transaction coordinator, we'd just give the parameters of the offer, they'd write it up, and then we'd be the last ones to look at it and check it over.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, my
here we're
TC is
not allowed.
contract to close.
What's that?
Or I said my TC is contract to close. So I do the contract and then after that she takes over.
Awesome.
Yeah, my TC now is contract to close as well. I write the offers.
Yeah, we're the same boat here. We're not allowed to have anybody. I have my transaction coordinator send out DocuSigns for signatures on amendments and stuff like that, which technically she's not supposed to, but I'm usually on the road driving, so I give her permission to do stuff like that.
Is that a licensed, not licensed thing?
Yeah, in
Okay.
Ontario, if you are doing anything with any signatures, initials, or anything to do with any contract, only the licensed agent is allowed to touch
Yeah,
it.
our TCs were all licensed, so
Yeah.
they had a little bit more permissions.
So how do you guys pay your VAs? Are you PayPaling people, or do you have like an online platform where you can pay, or how does that all work?
PayPal for me once a month.
Yeah,
Most of the time it's PayPal, yeah.
and they're just invoicing you?
Yeah, sometimes the freelancers will have a different payment system, but for the regulars, it's usually all PayPal.
Gotcha. So obviously they're invoicing you in US dollars.
Yeah, well, one time they did not. They invoiced me in, I don't know what the Filipino dollar is, but that's what it was. And I was like, this does not look right. And then one time they got the conversion wrong. And when I first started working with the freelance guy, he billed me and it was like $5 for 5 videos. I'm like, this can't be right.
Pretty
He
sure
was like, "No,
Philippines are
that's-"
pesos. Because
Is it?
my mother-in-law is Filipino. And so we always kind of giggle, well, but not being rude because she's Filipino, but we have a staffing business too. And so we've used some people over there. We're like, do you think you're related? You know, because basically everyone's related. But anyway, but we also are possibly going to go over there in February. And so I'm kind of laughing because I'm like, I wouldn't mind like finding the help desk people and seeing if we could meet up with them.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I'm sure they would love to actually like meet the people in person that they're working with.
Yeah.
In the chat, James says that he does PayPal and he uses Hubstaff to track hours. So that was another question. So I know some people are paying hourly. Are you having your VA track their hours, or are you just doing like on a per transaction or per task basis?
If everything's checked off on to-do list, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, because I value the work over the time, because if it's the time, they're just going to delay and slow down I don't think my VA would do that, but human nature.
Yeah.
So for me, like I remember I used to have a job that was like that and I loved it because I can take my time if I wanted to, or if I wanted to work midnight and not during the day, I can do that. And it was just very freeing. And I want him to feel that way. He hasn't given me a reason otherwise, but, tracking an hourly, it was just like too much. I'm like, this is what needs to be done every month. Some month it might be more than 80 hours. Other months it might be less, but this is what needs to be done. And if it's done, I don't care.
So if you were to add tasks, are you adding hours? Like, do you have it like, I think this
So-
task takes this long And then if
Yes.
you're adding something, then okay, well now they get 5 extra hours a week
So-
or
So actually, I have him 80 hours, but he really works like, wait, 80 hours is every 2 weeks. Okay, yeah, 80 hours 40 hours a week. Okay, but he's really working like 30. Like if I were to break it down, and it's fine. I don't mind that. And he knows that there's 10 hours there as a buffer in case I need something that's like a one-off. He also knows like I have some things coming up with content and I'm like, it's going to eat up like 5 hours. Just know that's coming. Because then to reduce his costs, like, I don't know, maybe I'm not the type of person to have a VA, but I feel bad, like, especially in that country where they don't even have money to eat to like cut it, I'm like, this is what you're going to get paid. Like I said, there's going to be times when you work a little bit more. Most of the times it's going to be a little bit less, and I remind him of that. I'm like, you have 10 hours there that I can replace with something. If I want to experiment with something, I can remove it. But, and so far it's worked well. Like our relationship is really good. And I notice it because he'll go out of his way sometimes to do something.
Yeah, like take initiative and stuff.
Yeah, like I just go back to my like old boss and he treated me so well and I would catch myself doing that. I was like, I would go above and beyond because he was so good to me. And I'm like, wow, that works. So I kind of like reflect that treatment. And so far I see that working.
Gigi, was it you that said you give the 250 bonus like on a closed
Mhm.
transaction?
Mm-hmm.
Does
Yeah.
anybody else have kind of that bonus or growth structure in place to where per closing they get extra, or as they grow on your team or as your team grows, they also get pay bumps?
I just have a per transaction. That's it. There's no hourly or anything. So if we close it, they get paid. If we don't close it, they don't get paid.
That's for all your VA, like all the VAs you use, or just
No,
the
the transaction coordinator.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what about like the growth of the other VAs? Like if you want to keep them around for long term, if they're doing a good job, is there any bonus structure or growth structure in place?
Not yet. I mean, I thought about doing a little Christmas bonus, but so I guess a couple of months in, I had a conversation with my personal assistant, asked her how it was going. She said it was going really well. She told me about her previous job in the interview, and it was basically doing what she's doing now, but it was for a local real estate company there. And she was like a personal assistant to someone there. And she's making like double with me versus what she was making with them. And she's able to be home for her kids. And even though she's working, late at night, she's still able to sleep, get her kids to school, and then she sleeps a little bit during the day. Her kids come home, she's with her kids, she makes dinner for her husband, all that stuff. Everybody goes to bed, and then she comes to work for me. So that has, I guess, kind of put her in a place where she don't want to go anywhere. So it's not like I don't feel the need to constantly give bumps because she's got a great workplace and really good life situation. And I think I'll just do a bonus maybe at the end of the year. But she's been with me now for coming up on 3 years.
Wow.
And she loves it. And she's usually at work before I am. And she's already sending me stuff. And then, I catch up when I get to the office. When I log in, I start catching up with what she's already done. So so far I don't really, there's been no mention of it. And it's kind of quite the opposite. She just usually shares how she loves being where she is and what she's doing.
Good.
If she were to come to you and ask for like, so good, again, like here in the States, if it's a good quality worker, running restaurants in the past, I know that you want to keep the best employees happy as much as you can because turnover is ridiculous. So how do you keep from VA turnover, I guess, is the overall question. If they're good.
So one of the things that I'm always checking on is the workload. And I do ask pretty regularly, how's the workload? Do you feel like it's too much? Do you feel like it's less? Do you feel like it's even? And she also knows probably by now when I'm asking that, I'm about to give her a project. But I always like to check in and say, how is it? How are we doing? Do you feel like you have extra time? Do you feel like you need extra time? And so that's usually what I'm checking on because I think the pay is fair as long as the time she's given me is fair.
Mhm.
And I think there have been some weeks that it's more than generous where she feels like she's not doing anything. She's getting paid for it. And I'll assure her that that's okay, because there's going to be other weeks where she feels overworked because, we just have a lot of stuff coming in at that time, or some stuff to do, or changing up something in marketing. So I think I'm focused more on work quality of life work type of stuff, and less on the dollar. And maybe that's we've never had a conversation about pay, and maybe that's why.
I think it's kind of the same thing with us, like with our commissions. I mean, sometimes we have a transaction where, we work 5 hours, another transaction, we work 50 hours. And so it's kind of the same thing with my transaction coordinator. She kind of works whatever she wants to. I mean, I'll get emails at midnight, and then sometimes I don't hear from her until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but as long as she's getting her stuff done, and I do pay her transaction based. For listings, I do like 125. I pay her after the listing's done. And then like Ray, if we don't close on a transaction, then she doesn't get paid until then.
So that was a good question, actually. Like, how do you work with the timing? Like, I guess you're not going to be bugging them during the hours that they're sleeping so much, and they can just get caught up.
I use Slack, so they can just turn off notifications.
Right.
Mine's in Brazil, which is only an hour time difference. So it's been perfect because we don't really run into that issue. She's off on the weekends. I don't even know what hours she works. She just gets the shit done within normal business hours, which works for the both of us. So that's been perfect so far. And in terms of like pay increases and stuff like that, we started her part-time just to see. It was more of like a trial period that we liked her, how many tasks we were giving her, and if we were running out of things or if we had more to give, and then basically promoted her to full-time. So that doubled her pay right there. And then we do give bonuses, like you guys were saying, for like any additional stuff in terms of transactions or holidays. And then, if she ever comes and says, listen, I need more money, like we would, definitely consider that at that point. It's a lot less to us than it is to them. So even an extra $1 an hour, to keep someone that knows what they're doing and knows the way that you like your stuff done is definitely worth the increase every time.
So how are you all timing out tasks? Because if you have 10 people and you gave them the same 10 tasks, it's going to take all 10 of them a different amount of time to do that. So how do you decide like what the time issue is for the task that you give, and what the
I have to
average
be
possibly
honest.
hourly?
My partner does that. So I don't know what platform we have for her, but there is something where like she tracks her hours and times it, and she'll tell us, like, if I ask her in the middle of the week, I'm like, how many hours have you done so far? She'll be like, oh, we're 15 and so far. So I know, okay, let me give her a few more things to do. Let me see if she can answer so I can find out what that platform is, because it's perfect for tracking at the end of the week too. So we know that we're on pace for everything. I will say though, my VA is super quick. So I haven't had issues with her like dragging out tasks to take up time. It's the opposite. I give her something she's done in 2 seconds. I'm like, oh my God, what do I give her next? Like now I need to add 5 more things. So it really
there
depends
is an
on who you're
audit.
working with.
There is an auditing system there that you're using. Okay.
Yeah.
Another question I had for you, Grace, actually, because I was dipping through your social media and I know you have a certain style on all of your stuff. How do you make sure what you're having them do for your social media and for like your newsletters and stuff like that? I know you said you're providing them with templates. Are you buying templates from somewhere and giving them to them, or are they making a template themselves and running it by you, or how does that all work?
It depends on what it is. I do have more of a particular style. So a lot of them I had done already before I hired her. And I'm like, here are the templates. They're already done on Canva. Pop in the information. We do mailers also for my team and I. Once a month, we do a 12-month campaign for a specific target area. So she has like creative reign with those, because those are printables. Like it doesn't need a specific aesthetic, but I'm like, here are my branding colors and fonts, and just make sure to keep those consistent. And then I kind of give her creative power over that. Of course, there's times where I'll go in and I'll like change a few things because I'm a little OCD and I'm like, okay, I don't like this, but I'll just send it back and I'll be like, going forward, if you can just you know, alter so it's more similar to this style, that's what I'll do. But there's also so many on what's that website, on Etsy, where like different templates for listing presentations and booklets and buyer templates and stuff like that that you can purchase on there one time. Oh my God, the thunder is insane. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Probably not because I have my headphones in. But I've done a lot in terms of like my listing books and stuff like that, that I'll purchase on Etsy, and I'll have her pop in my personal information from there.
Awesome.
Does
Ray,
anybody
you-
have a VA like commenting for them on Facebook, Instagram posts, like as their voice?
I don't know if you've heard of ManyChat. ManyChat is like an automated AI bot where it's pretty simple to use, and I'll have her set up my systems on there as well. Like I sent her videos of how to use the platform from their website, and she kind of figured it out. But when it comes to like, there's a keyword. So if I'm like, okay, if you're looking to relocate to Florida, comment relocation, and I'll send you my guide, and it automatically pops that guide into their inbox. So you can set up a comment on the actual post itself that'll say, okay, I just sent you a DM, and then it'll also automatically DM it to them like within the same second. There's also things you could do like a lead magnet where you get their email address in exchange for the guide, which is great to build your email list. But ManyChat does all of that, and then you can just export that email list onto your CRM. So that I don't use a VA for. I pay, I think, $25 a month for ManyChat.
I'm talking more, ManyChat's awesome. I'm talking more like commenting on other people's posts, like going in as you, but commenting on, like you would be commenting on Ray's post or James or Kristen's post. So your VA is doing those comments to grow your accounts that way.
You
Kind of
can
the-
definitely, yeah, it's good to do that, especially on like verified pages and people with a ton of followers. It's a great way to get exposure for your page. I personally do it myself just because I'll get people that reach out to me over DM and they feel like they know me forever because I've been commenting on their stuff. I have no idea who they are. So like, just for my own reference and building like genuine personal relationships with people, I like to do it. But like I said, if it's like more of like verified pages and people with a huge following that you want to just build your name, then in that case, I would recommend having them go do that.
Perfect.
I haven't really added the person that is me in marketing yet. We have a company page and she posts some stuff on there, but it's usually pretty heavily directed to me. The post templates and things like that that we use are all created by me. And I think a lot of that has to do with me being very particular about how I want things to look. So it's hard for me to give that up. I'll basically create the graphics, create the template, show her how to use it. And then this is my personal assistant that'll do it for me. And she'll prep like listing work and marketing work and stuff like that for me. And then she will, on my Facebook pages, post it as a draft. I go in, double check it, and make it go live. That's kind of our pattern. She doesn't have access to my Instagram though, because I just want that to all be authentically me. And back in the day, I heard that if people are logging into an Instagram account from multiple countries, that it does impact that page's reach because they figure this is a scam or a VA or something like that doing it. So I try to avoid that with that page.
Perfect.
Yeah, we actually had an agent in our market who had somebody in the Philippines who he gave his MLS username and password to, and that person was going in and doing his CMAs for him, and he ended up losing his access to the real estate board because you're not allowed to share your username and password with anybody.
MLS is so strict, even with like the Supra iBoxes or like the lock boxes through the MLS. I had one for my team and we weren't supposed to be sharing it and we got locked out of that. So just be careful.
Half
Well-
of the agents in our town would lose access if that was true here. Everyone's assistant logs into the MLS in this town.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many programs now that you can just use that have IDX and will do basically a CMA for you, like using the MLS. So having someone have access to your MLS isn't really necessary.
Not always.
Well, like my transaction coordinator is also the listing manager. So he'll input all the listings and all the listing information. And then I log in and check it out and then hit go live on it. So They're not allowed to push anything live, but they can enter in all the initial information for us to review it. I don't know if that's against the rules or not, but that's how we do it.
They're on your team though, right? Like they're
Yeah.
local
They're
on your team,
No,
or your VA's doing this.
VA.
So as long, again, I think a lot of things, as long as you're last eyes and you're the one kind of pushing send, then who fills out the information is
Yeah.
Well, otherwise
negligible.
it's really just data entry. I mean, if you-
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the data that we give them. Like we give them a sheet of paper that says, here's all the data you need on this. Go enter it. They enter it. And then I check it for all of our team members. I check it before we make it go live.
Yeah. It's really, as long as you can stand behind it and say, I agree with everything that's been put in, and you're kind of like final signature, finalize, then you're normally going to be okay.
Finalize.
Has anybody ever come up to a situation where you've got a not necessarily a language barrier, but if you've got somebody from another country helping you and they've made a social media post that didn't make sense or didn't sound like English as their first language wrote it? Has anybody had that happen to them before?
I've seen that in our marketplace.
Yeah.
Not happened with us yet.
I know we're seeing a lot of people putting up listings that they copy and paste, and it's still got the beginning of the Chat GPT message where it's like, here's a better response. And then it's got the listing description. I'm like, how did nobody check that?
I kind of love that though. That's so funny.
So classic.
You know, it's
It's
mainly
so
when someone,
today.
it's mainly when someone spells like favorite with an OU, like that's,
Hey. We're just spelling it correctly, right, Jared?
That's right.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, does anybody have any other questions about VAs, or should we start to wrap it up?
Are there some additional ways that you guys are thinking about using VAs that we haven't talked about yet that you're like, this is an area that I want to use one for?
calling, like cold calling. Is anybody using VAs?
That's that language barrier. That scares me to death.
Yeah.
In our area, if you have, I mean, pardon the Canadian friends, but if you got a foreigner calling around, then you're in trouble. I mean, it's just a trouble.
Yeah. And everyone knows.
Yeah.
Ray, I'm in San Francisco. Every call we get is
I know, right?
If they don't have like an Indian or Pakistani accent, then we get a little like, wait,
A little
you're
leery.
you're not from here. We have a whole different set of rules in the Bay Area.
We're a little more inland.
Yeah, I feel like in Canada, we're pretty multicultural, so you can kind of get away with everything up here.
Yeah,
Probably
it's
same in California.
almost you prefer it. Like you want, like people are more open to getting calls from
Really?
basically anything. Yeah. It's
That is such the opposite in our area. I mean, it's very much stark contrast.
well, I mean, still white is the majority, but not by much. So we're very, very like ethnically diverse here. And normally like in a good way, and normally, you know, a lot of first generation. So they're still gonna have the accent and stuff. So it's not, hearing that on the phone is not a turn off to anybody here.
I have people who give me their phone number and tell me when to call them, and I call them and they say, how'd you get my number? You know, and I'm like that's what we run into. It's very difficult in our area.
I mean, getting anybody to pick up the phone at all these days is difficult. If I don't recognize the number, I'm not picking it up. So I just imagine everybody is the same.
Yeah.
So I tend to text people first, so they kind of
Yes.
know. It's like text like, hey, I'm going to give you a call. And then they realize it's not just a strange number.
Like that's proper etiquette. So how would you use that in the context of a VA? Would you tell them to text first?
That's what that's why I'm asking. I don't know. So
I know there are companies out there that do it, but I haven't run into one that I could just trust with my database.
I think getting local numbers, or at least one of the area codes in the Bay Area, it's like you don't have to be 415 in San Francisco, but you should probably have some Bay Area area code. So having access to that, so they are texting at least from what looks like your area, is probably a good move. I get super skeptical if it's like from Vegas or from some other area code that is outside of the Bay Area. But if it's Bay Area, I'm like, oh, they're probably local.
Well, I know like through Lofty, which is a CRM that I use, I've got it set up so you can send texts and communicate with people, and it is coming from a local phone number, despite the fact that it's not actually hooked up to anybody's phone. So you can kind of get away with it that way if you're using a VA, because they can just text and email through that information.
Yeah.
Another thing too is if you have an email for them on Google Workspace, you can also set up a Google Voice number for them, and you can set the area code to your area code even if they're in a different part of the world. So that works.
Google Voice number?
Yep. So you have to set them up with their own email within your organization,
Yeah.
and then you attach, you just attach a Google Voice number to that specific account, and you can choose a area code within your organization's location, which in my case would be Miami. So I can choose that area code and he can use that.
Awesome. I didn't even know that that was a thing you could do.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, I don't know. Does anybody have any other questions? No? Awesome. Well, this is a great session. Thank you guys for taking some time out of your Monday and chatting with us. I know like I'm trying to get wheels in motion right now and do this, and it's like every time I take a couple steps towards it, I panic and then don't do anything. So
If I could encourage you in any way, it's just to pull the trigger, because I was in the same boat for a long time. And I
Yeah.
finally was talking to someone about it, and they said, just hire them and then you can fix them later. And so my first hire, I told all the assistants that I interviewed, I was like, here's what the job is, and you're going to have to basically make up your job and figure it out from my emails. And the ones that were willing to take it on are the ones that got the second interview and the in-depth discussion. And so they know what they're getting into. And as long as they know that they're about to throw themselves into chaos and help me figure it out, then they were happy with it. And she's delighted to. Anytime everything gets a little bit chaotic, she really comes alive and it's like, yes, all right, here's what we need to do. Here's how we need to do it.
yeah.
And so I think that's kind of her superpower. So I would say go ahead and pull the trigger on somebody, and then the next person, you'll have more information. Like the first assistants I had were not VAs. The first assistants I had were local, and I had a couple of personal assistants, and I learned a lot from them. And then there would be these stretches where they're like, hey, I can't come into the office this week, but I'll work from home. And then I started to think like, why am I paying them 10 times what I would have to pay someone else? And they're working from home. I could have someone else do everything that person did. And then that's when my wheels started turning, saying this is ridiculous. So, but she's great.
So would all of you that are using VAs say that they have helped you grow your business at this point? Like great ROI?
Yeah,
I
for sure.
can't imagine going back and doing everything that they do. Like I travel now and I'm like, oh my God, imagine if I had to do this. Like I can't go backwards now.
Yeah.
Even like finding the time to send out my email for this mastermind every Sunday night, it's like I have to sit down and spend an hour and get it all together. And I'm like, oh my God, my brain does not have the power for this. I just want to have a Sunday night right now.
This is a great example. Do you know my Monday morning mastermind email?
Yeah.
So she prepares all of that for me. And then I go in and I edit it. And so all I am doing is I'm putting that little thing at the top.
Yeah.
I edit that. She's always got something there in case I can't get to it. She'll just hit send on it. So she's always got something there. And then I will just put the, like my voice on it, and we'll edit it. Or if like this week, Lindsay Joe is in Katie and Bob's mastermind. Jason Pantana is on my mastermind for tomorrow. And so all I added, she didn't know that. So all I added was, hey, here are 2 big announcements. And then everything else was pretty much her. And so it has helped me to get more out because she has it all prepared. She has it all there. And all I have to do in a lot of cases is hit send, that's really great.
Yeah, I love that. Before we're done, Paula, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you have a business where you connect people with staff, or is that something else entirely?
No, I'm actually in the office. So no, we own a staffing and recruiting company called Spherion.
Okay, so kind of a little bit the same thing, I would guess.
Right. Well, I'm a realtor also,
Yeah.
but the staffing is another business that we do. And so we have candidates that apply for jobs. So we've used, well, I guess they're VAs out of the Philippines help desk to just, look on LinkedIn for people who are looking for jobs and kind of connect them back and forth. So yes, and they do, even looking at the cold calling, several of the people that work with this particular company, you can't tell that English is not their first language. They're very well spoken.
Yeah.
So I feel like even in Arkansas, I would be comfortable with some of them calling, on behalf of my real estate company also. But yeah, we have the VAs and they will call candidates and do pre-interview and post-interview, as well as clients that are looking for candidates as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, America is one of the United States is one of the few places where the average person only speaks one language. Any other country, like everybody speaks 2-3 languages.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. You guys, this is amazing. Thank you. It helped me, and I'm sure it helped all the other people that are secretly hiding in the background, but I know everyone's listening. So thank you. I appreciate you spending your time with us on Monday. I'm going to do my best to try and make a PDF list of what everyone shared, showing the tasks that they've got their VAs doing. So if anyone has one as a PDF file that they could send me, that would be awesome. If not, I will try and copy as much as I can out of the video and turn it into a PDF, and then I'll upload it into our Facebook group for anybody that wants to use it. Awesome.
Hey,
Okay.
Kristen, I just gave you my number. Let me know if you need help hiring.
That is the easiest phone number I have ever gotten, Ray.
Thank you. It's all odd numbers.
Actually, it is. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Actually, I was gonna DM you outside of this and
Yeah.
ask if your personal assistant might be able to help me hire somebody.
Yeah. Send me your job description, what you're looking for.
Okay, I'll put something together tonight. Amazing. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have an awesome week. Sell lots of houses. And we'll be back next week. We're going to be talking about Meta and Facebook ads.
You found someone?
I found somebody that's actually willing to share some information with us. So we're going to be doing that next week. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great week.
Bye.